In this video, I'm going to show you how to counter every single jungler no matter what you're playing from A to Z. So no matter what changes happen in Season 13 and beyond, you will be prepared to face and defeat whatever comes your way. We will go in alphabetical order, and again, this will not be specific to the micro mechanics of each champion because that will change depending on what you're playing. Although I will give some specific ability counters, in situations where it's warranted. And all of these counters will be in my live companion GG guides. Basically, they will give you a sampling based upon what jungler you're facing, give you those live tips on how to maximize your strengths against them, as well as giving you the best runes, items, builds, and strategies for the champion you're playing. All that is linked below. So let's start off with Amumu, and the first thing is that his basic attacks are empowered when he curses you for 3 seconds. That then will mean you get 10% bonus true damage received, so you want to be cautious about the damage over time effect that he has, along with his 2 bandage tosses, so if he misses one, be mindful of the second. Likewise, you have to know that his W is a max HP damage profile when he has AP scalings that can hurt quite a bit, and his E basically gives him significantly more damage reduction with resistances, so depending what he builds will change how you fight him. Additionally, remember for Amumu, you have to be mindful of closing games and not grouping as a team in crucial mid to late game teamfights. The thing about Amumu is you want to make sure you're having split fights, pick someone off from their team, and avoid him getting a maximum 3 to 5 champion ultimate. That's why he works so well in low elo, because he simply does that, and no one thinks about positioning differently, looking for picks or flanking on the backline. And obviously, to avoid him reaching that level of spike, you just want to make sure you're invading him early. Don't let him get away with farming. He is more support in high elo because he's so damn weak. This means you need to invade, abuse, and prevent him from scaling just by killing him, taking his stuff, and then ganking lanes. It sounds simple because it is simple. If you don't want a ladder to reach the top of the building, don't let the feet get set. Secondly, we're going to talk about Bel'Veth. Try and bait out her Qs with your mobility spells if you have any, otherwise position in a way that she's forced to use them to dodge your spells. This will severely reduce her mobility to either chase or engage with a Q, which of course makes it easier for her to hit that W. Her E also gives that huge damage reduction, so burst her out up front, that's what she hates. And yes, with Bel'Veth, that's the thing we want. Burst damage to avoid her damage reduction in the first place, and don't let her hit that W to give her the Q reset mobility, and then of course try and keep your distance as much as you can. Or avoid the area once she starts activating and starts sucking. Likewise, what people don't track in teamfights is the Coral Burst. They do true damage, they heal her, and they really start to give her a lot of those resets. Try and either deny her getting to them when she's low, or avoid getting caught in the explosion. While Diana is still a strong champion, she's no longer the meta god she was. She is weaker early as well, and you think you can't fight her because she becomes this Jackshow building behemoth, or Sunfire building behemoth, or whatever degenerate build she's gonna go next. You can actually defeat her earlier. When she becomes unkillable with her tanky builds, but is weaker early on, try and use this against her. She doesn't have the ability to kill you, but you can kill her in those long sustained fights. However, there is very little you can do at certain points, but try and kite back in fights and help your team dispatch her all as one. When she goes in and she's ahead and becomes unkillable with a lot of damage, the only way you can defeat her is by bundling up, kiting back, and then preventing her from getting that engage. At the same time, if you can dodge her Q, well then you stop a lot of your problems in the first place, because that gives her that E reset. With Echo, remember when his ult is up, it gives you a ghost, and you can chain CC and burst him before he's able to press the button. Obviously you have to be a lot further ahead, but that's what good jungling is for. His E will also follow you if he latches onto your champion, so if you're gonna flash and dash after he presses that button, be mindful, try and use it once he connects or before he's in range to use it. Likewise, remember to avoid his Q because it goes out and it slows you, but it also comes back. Something to be mindful of in fights because people just stand in it for some reason. Same thing with Graves. Remember that his R also triggers a W, so just because you think he's not in it, watch for that ghost, because that trail could lead to a 2.25 second stun and your death. For Elise, she is a potent early game jungler. You need to use counting X instead of straight 1v1 fights. You want her crucial spells and mobility to be down by the time you show up, because it makes it much easier for you to kill her. Likewise, if you just run around the map ignoring where she is, you're gonna get face checked with a cocoon and then you die, so good vision control is important. Likewise, on that same note, track her for counter dives, look at your lanes when you think they might be diveable so that you can position to clean up the mess. And obviously, don't forget Mercury Tread's pretty damn good against her. If you think she's escaping a situation and might repel to safety, destroy the plants before she's able to do so because she can actually E2 those. Evelynn is something that frustrates everyone, and they always come into Discords and say, well, how could I have stopped her getting 20 kills and killing my ADC? Well, strong control wards are required, I'm afraid, as well as deep vision on her camps. Put your trinket ward on her raptors, on her krugs, on her wolves, on her grump. This combined with control wards allows you to see where she's going, use extrapolation, and then obviously position yourself properly. If you can find her, focus her, and force her to ult before that bonus damage kicks in on her amplifier, that would be a good idea. Like Amumu, like any scaler, very weak early and something you can abuse. Don't watch her scale and become a problem. Try and avoid that Q when she chucks it out in your 1v1s in the early game as you're trying to suppress her. That gives her bonus damage, so avoiding that equals good stuff. And it's pretty much a given that she's going to full clear, so, you know, set yourself up to invade, adapt your clear to invade, and then eventually you are the hunter. You live her no jungle and you show her what it feels like, which the character will enjoy, but, you know, the player won't. For Fiddlesticks, his E silence and Q fear are horrible for chasing down, so look to have good strong vision control to powerfully counter his ganks and avoid ambushes from the effigies. Yes, it's ironic, but that's what we want to do, because as soon as you start to chase him, the silence and the fear, it makes it kinda irritating. His late game is absolutely monstrous as well and not something you want to see, so don't let it. Gank lanes and get good deep vision for your team so they can be safe and secure. His objective control is also insanely potent and powerful. Try and manipulate his pathing to deny him this pleasure. And the obvious one is don't let his W go through to fruition. Stun him, interrupt him, knock him up, doesn't really matter. Don't let him get the bonus heal proc. Gragas is an amazing gank here and map tempo savant, so strong ganking and disrupting the jungler is what he wants. Use your spells intelligently to avoid his belly slam as well as his ultimate when you do get into those counter ganks and those fights. If you can avoid the body slam, you're already set up for success. As such, when he goes for those ganks and uses body slams and ultimates and slows and gap closes, do yourself a favor and counter gank it with ease. Any ganker, this is what you want to do, is track and counter gank. Itemize with magic resistance early if he gets fed. It will be hard to fight him due to his CC, and Mercury Treads will help, but remember, they do not work against knockups and displacements. His W gives him drunken powers. Avoid the auto attack right after he drinks, as that will hurt a lot more. Graves can be a bit of everything and a bit of nothing and a bit of everywhere and a bit of nowhere, so make sure you have good trinket wards early to see if he's going to invade you, go for level 2 cheese, or just go for the sequencing. A good deep trinket before 129, that's good. If you see where he goes, you can reverse clear to avoid him. And remember, he will invade, he will counter jungle, try and match his tempo in any way you can, but through equal and opposite, you don't want to give him free advantages. And again, dodging that Q as it comes back is huge because that's where most of the damage is. The outbound is obviously an issue, but dodge the rebound because it does more damage. Likewise, remember that his auto attacks reduce his E cooldown, so if you're standing and fighting him, he's going to have that mobility up much sooner. That, and it also gives him that True Gear passive, which allows him to become quite tanky as he eats towards you or any enemies. Be mindful of this when you think about bursting him out if he's already got that stacked. You can click at him, look at the top left, and you will see, look, he's got X amount of stacks of True Grit. That makes him a lot more tanky. Hecarim is something that most players don't seem to know how to play, even though he's really easy. He's really strong, but his win rate isn't so good. He will often look to 6 camp, so use this to do a late invade or simply control double scuttles by maybe swapping to a 5 or 4 camper just so you can get that map control. You can chase him when his E is on cooldown, and that's when you can actually fight him, so ambushing and counter ganking are what the horse needs to stay a pony. The longer Hecarim fights, the stronger he becomes. That W spell is really insane to use, as well as his Q stacks, so look to peel him as he engages to dive your backline with damaging builds. If you can CC him initially and burst him out as a team, he won't be able to do very much. That's the benefit of the current version of the horse. Yeah, Ivan is a champion, he exists. Just use an early trinket on your second buff so you can actually defend it and see if he's going to counter jungle you, because that's really what he wants to do. Did he steal your camps anyway, and now you actually have vision? Alright, counter invade, but pay attention to lane prio. Remember, if you get hit by an Ivern Q, then the team can kind of auto attack and gap close on you, so if you can avoid that Q, that's good. But his spam shielding and the annoyance of Daisy are the things you're going to see the most often. So don't forget, you can smite Daisy, and obviously pay attention to the E-shield's timing. Even if it feels spammable, use those windows when it's not up to burst out the target he's trying to protect. Jarvan IV will have a high ganking tempo. He might even cheese a level 2 gank or a level 2 invade, so early wards like against Graves are crucial. He can easily pressure you into playing his game, so don't let it happen. Keep a calm head, execute your own game plan, and keep objective control. It's very easy to get baited into trying to gank like him. You cannot. Don't forget to also save your mobility for his EQ combo to avoid the knockup or to get out of his ultimate crater. If you use these things beforehand, you're basically guaranteeing he can CC you and destroy you. Basically, knowledge of enemy champions and when we should use our spells relevant to them is the definition of how to counter something. And next we have Jax, who will be receiving an update very soon, the definition of a jungler who does nothing until he does something. Not interested in fighting 1v1, but he can easily gank and split push once he gets going, and then of course he will kill you 1v1. A bit of a misleading duelist early, but most likely you can deal with him. Just avoid him as much as possible if you don't want to fight him, and play your own game. He's not really an issue for you. His counter strike is known to be extremely annoying, as he will dodge all incoming non-turret basic attacks and takes reduced damage from area of effect abilities, but you can of course still stun him. It also allows him to stun you, and then leap strike allows him to escape and of course jump onto you. So avoid the flash engage, avoid using all your crucial CC spells on the counter strike, and if you play jungle properly with an actual jungler against a Jax jungle, you should win. Karthus dodges Qs as best you can. It's whack-a-mole, and it does bonus damage to ISO targets, so, group up together, and if you're gonna get hit as one. Like 3 people pretending to be one, not as one, because, bonus damage. Invade timers are absolutely huge on him. He will be full clearing, so can I collapse on his Crocamp? Can I collapse and invade on his red? If you can kill him in the first rotation, great. Otherwise, look for the second rotation, the 415 Gromp. Suppress him as best you can, and remember that W does magic shred, so building things that have magic resist are pretty good. And also Zhonya's, Banshee's Veil, Gargoyles, these things will save you from his ultimate Hellfire as well as his Liandry's HP damage. Next up we have Kayn, and in any form, if he ults you, try and run to your team or stay away from the walls, so that when he extricates himself from your soul, he's not eating to safety. He will be trapped and then he will die. Patience, Viceroy. And remember, while his life is about the orbs, you can fight him. No, you don't want to give him those free orbs for form, but when you do take their combat, make sure you engage in a way that's worth it and meaningful. If he's baiting you in just for orbs in a losing game state, don't waste your time. If you can kill him, do so. But when he does become that form, just please remember, Blue Kayn hates CC. Peel, peel, peel. If you have CC, peel. If you have damage and you can outdamage him, do so. And obviously for us, while he is kind of kiteable, he's also kind of not. Do your best to avoid the W and your life will be a better place. For Kha'Zix, the eternal assassin jungler who's always good, strong counter ganks are desired and obviously remaining close to your teammates, or if you're Fiddlesticks, an effigy. Don't take fights against a fit Kha'Zix when he has ISO damage, you will die. Don't go for sneaky dragons that you think you can get. If he finds you, he's tracking you, you're not warded, again, you will die. Always have strong vision control on Kha'Zix. He can very easily snowball with sneaky ganks and disgusting damage, as well as ultimate mobility if he goes that path. And likewise, one of the champions good against that sort of thing is Kindred. So what you need to do as Kindred is obviously good wards on your buffs. They will try and pressure you and kill you. They will want to snowball. They will want to end. For Kindred, you want to deny the marks. So try and pressure them early without necessarily fighting them. Pressure them by denying marks. Pressure them by timing the marks better than they do. Pressure them by getting your laners ahead so that you can goon squad the Kindred in their jungle and again, deny the marks. Don't let Kindred also proc their E for free in fights where you're getting low. Don't get baited into using spells around walls as Kindred can easily kite you back and forth with a QW combo. But hey, should you be caught up in that, guess what? You can also heal from Kindred's ultimate, so don't run away when you're trying to fight the death within death. Other than that, there's not much else you can do because the champion is just straight up Giga. For Lee Sin, it is smarter, wiser, and chattier to dodge his first Q. The second Q, he will follow you like a donkey follows Shrek, but that can also be a bad thing if he has a lead. Try and dodge the first iteration. And even if you do everything to destroy him, a flash kick can win the game, Meteos memes. So ensure good positioning and know when you need to peel for your carry to protect them from the kick. A Lee who is behind is a Lee that many champs can deal with 1v1, so don't be afraid. Do something about it. Start to translate that map tempo. That's why he's so bad at the moment, because you can easily do this. It's just people are afraid of Lee Sin. You have to win the mental game. Ironic, but that's what it is. Lilia will outfarm you, she will outscale you, she will be very difficult to deal with in the open fields, haha, because of a movement speed passive, so please invade, deny, counter gank, and of course, try your best to avoid letting her stack the passive such that she becomes unkiteable. However, again, against her percentage HP damage, shields can be huge. We want to avoid being DOT'd, damage over timed to death just because we decided to build Warmugs first. In Season 13, there are actually items that you can do that now in terms of Heartsteel. But most importantly, be mindful of the random E's that allow her to gap close and use that ultimate with said movement speed. At the same time, she has Zhonya's, and if she goes full damage, she is squishy, so if she's out of position and you can change CC, do so. Otherwise, with all scales and wild deer, make sure you get them down before they start spreading. And to start off for Season 13, I will be hosting another bootcamp with Coach Kybert for laners and junglers and for every single role. Topics on your screen now starts end of January 30th. Basically, we're going to be covering everything in this video in depth related to you, giving you some active examples, some drills, everything to make you a better League of Legends player as a whole, all through a really in-depth 2-week bootcamp from January 30th onward. And additionally, I will be raffling off a $400 coaching package to a lucky winner who subscribes in the first 100 tickets, which means a further 4 hours of coaching directly with me, all free for you after the bootcamp is finished. And overall, the bootcamp is just chocked full of absolute free coaching, free VOD reviews, Q&As. We have 10 different sessions for you from myself and Coach Kybert. We have other challenger coaches on call. Essentially, you're looking at something like 30 coaching sessions for the price of one, all within a community hosted by Gosu Academy. So click the link in the description below, sign up, join the Discord, and I will see you all there to learn everything you need to know about Season 13 jungling and laning so that you can climb to your ranked goals and beyond. From Maokai, one of the strongest gankers in the game with the best win rate at the moment, and I'm sure will be for the foreseeable future. But you farm faster than him, so be strategic in your counter ganks, and just make sure you're getting that experience level and counter ganking. At the same time, his healing passive on that auto attack is something that you need to track after a certain amount of spells, but he mostly cannot solo objectives like other junglers. He cannot go ahead and do the Herald and the Dragon in quick time. So if you've got good vision, good rotations, good map tempo, you can always match that up nicely. Teamfights are the difficult thing because he's a great picker and a great team fighter. So if you've jungled well and have a 2-level lead, you should be able to handle the engages by kiting back and focusing him down. Or as he does that, you just kill his backline, forcing him to then peel, which, nullifies a lot of his kit. Just be mindful of that ultimate, be mindful of that W sticking to you as you flash and dash. But again, very strong champion. Know if he has phase rush when you want to CC, and know if he has aftershock to track your burst. It can really feel like there isn't much you can do against Master Yi. But if you counter gank him once, if you invade once, if you make him get a desperation play early and you can kill him, it will render him useless for the rest of the game, or at least until you guys fail to close. As such, the champ is gross once he gets rolling, so whatever you can do, keep tempo control. Get the ganks first, force him to make mistakes, take his jungle, take the objectives. Just don't let him settle, farm, and clean up. And then eventually, your only hope is strong CC. A lot of the time, the best strategy is to ensure strong denial jungling, but when it comes to teamfights and skirmishes, try and bait out that alpha as a gap close, and then you can CC immediately. It's the only shot you have. That and interrupting his W. Mordekaiser can be a very difficult matchup because he gets away with farming hard, fast, and then yeets you to the dark dimension in crucial fights. He steals your stats, and if you're fed, only pain. If you can cleanse his ultimate, please do so. That's the best thing. Rengar ultimate, any unstoppable abilities, do so. Otherwise, your best friend here is to ensure you are stronger in the 1v1 sense. Pick a strong champion that's strong 1v1, and if you aren't, don't go 1v1ing him. Simple. Also, again, tempo control. He wants to farm and scale, make all his lanes loose so he cries about it on the sub. Most people don't seem to like Dr. Mundo, but guess what? You proc his passive, you can kite him. If he doesn't have ultimate, you can kill him. If he doesn't get to step on the canister because you destroyed it, he loses heal. But he is a fast farmer who scales and will run people down if you let him just do this. Why are you letting him do this? What are you doing that allows a Mundo to AFK farm? Proc his passive, step on the canister, then CC him. And guess what? There's a whole game called Mundo Dodgeball. You know why? Because it's not exactly easy to hit it all the time when people are trying to dodge it. So do your best to have quick feet, keep your mouse close to your champion, and then dodge them. However, most importantly, with the new Mundo update is his W stores mostly gray health from up front, 90%. So don't hardcore burst him initially. Wait for him to trigger the W for the first little phase, and then you can use a damage whereby he will get way less of that gray HP. Crucial, no? But he scales, he will heal, he will deal with your whole entire team, so your best thing is strong early game jungling, good invade pressure as you can do it, and then of course, end the game before he becomes the monster. The benefit of Nidalee is that she's a very highly skilled champion and very few people play her properly, so you don't need to worry about that too much. Use that egotistical advantage you have. And much like the Kindreds and Graves, against these kind of champions you need strong early vision, and if you're beneath D2, she will be slow and low with those first clears, which means as long as you know where she begins, you can typically invade a lower elo Nidalee and just never let her play the game. However, against good Nidalee, she will counter jungle you, she will use the range advantage, she will become very difficult to deal with, so you want to do equal and opposite things much like against a Graves. But ultimately in 1v1s, a champion requires a lot of mechanical prowess to pull off. So if you can dodge the Q, she doesn't get the gap close. If you can avoid the trap, she doesn't get the gap close and execute. These are the things that are important. Use her mechanics against her by dodging the spells that are difficult to hit anyway. But any champs like that, with Nidalee, with Kindred, with Graves, where they have a lot of bonus mobility and damage lacing Q that can come from hitting spells, if you can avoid the initial spell, you're gonna have a good time. Unlike ADCs when they go against a Nocturne, who is a misleading duelist that can outfist you, and you don't expect it and then he does it. So you need to time your abilities against his spell shield, and that's the crucial mind game you have with him, and then when the darkness does arrive, hey, just ping your location so that your teammates can see where he is and play accordingly. The worst thing about Nocturne is no one does this, so you never know where he is. So outside of baiting out that spell shield early, the best thing you can do here is tracking early farming and sequencing while watching pushing lanes. This will allow you to position yourself to counter gank his first ult. This is an absolute huge win if you can do this, which allows you to then invade and keep him down. You want him to be a flying pigeon, not a $5 billion jet. For Nunu, much like Jarvan, you don't want to be baited into his game. So encourage early deep wards from your teammates as well as yourself, and then try and set up those counter ganks once he's blown his load and has no snowball. He's a good spam ganker, which means if you can't match it, equal and opposite will be great for you. It can be very easy to get 20, 30, 40 CS leads over a Nunu even if those ganks are good. You're still strong and now you win 1v1. Also remember that with phase rush, AP Nunu is squishy and can be killed with good lockdown. However, with aftershock, he becomes very difficult once he hits the W or E, so wait a little bit before you unload your entire damage profile. Likewise, phase rush makes him go in and out quite frequently, so if you have missed your CC, he's just going to be sprinting off away. Be mindful of the amount of damage that AP brings, as well as the heal from his Q, and the fact that you can never outsmite him, so just give up those dragons and heralds. Don't even contest and try and steal a Q smite. Try and do something else to get strong. Remember that Olaf is a nightmare matchup. The slows, the healing, the CC removal on his ultimate. Try and get ahead of him so that you can get 6 early and try and abuse that ability on the objectives and herald so that you can snowball. Or as he gets lower in the early phases of clearing, although not as much of an issue in Season 13, try and get out ahead of him by making sure that he can't just run you down with his true damage. After level 6, you will have to avoid him as much as possible because with the cleansing of CC and the chase ability that he has, he also gets those bonus resistances on reaching level 6 and above, which means he's just naturally tankier while using his passive to heal up and sustain up. Dodge that first Q and you can maybe escape situations, and don't 50-50 dragons, barons, and heralds. His E plus smite combo is almost unmatched unless you're talking about a Nunu. So again, like with Nunu, play it safe, try and do something else if he's got free objectives rather than trying to contest hopelessly. But as he rushes at you guys and he doesn't get CC'd, the best way to kill him? A lot of damage. So ping him, focus him, and kite back. For Poppy, you just need to ensure you are not fighting her near terrain, as her E will stun you and then do more damage. So your positioning will be key in those 1v1s and counter ganks. Watch that W as it interrupts dashes. It will play a factor in 1v1 and 2v2s early and later. And remember, as she chucks at her hammer, if you can try and dodge that through unstoppable spells or mobility, do so, otherwise you're going all the way back to your nexus. And then remember that her damage is quite high despite being tanky, and she gets tankier the lower HP she is. Kinda like a tanky Olaf, so structure your ability bursts accordingly. Much like your Nidalees and other difficult champions, she's hard to pull off, so trust your 1v1, but against a good Qiyana who is fed, yeah, you need your team. You need to focus her together, and she will always look to gank a lot more than other assassins, which opens her up to high-risk plays and desperation. So if you can look to capitalize by counter ganks or counter jungling, that is a good idea. Solo objectives while she wastes time trying to make those plays, and obviously having a great ward placement will assist you in all of this, so deep vision is your friend. Rammus can seem very, very difficult to face in the modern era, almost unkillable, and also does so much damage back to you. So while he is tanky, it should provide minimal issue early in those 1v1s, however he will permagank, you can't play his game, and you will have to focus on your farming and counter jungling to keep him weak. The best thing you have, because of how fast he approaches, is wards that are not quite in his jungle. Obviously if you can get that, that's great, but a little bit higher up the river so that you have time to rotate and see, and obviously ping it out for your laners. Later in the game with Jack Show Gaming and all of these new items, he will be very difficult to handle 1v1. So the best thing you can do is try and protect and peel your carries who he's chosen to taunt. And ultimately you beat him in champion select. You see it, pick a magic damage doer. Pick your Mordekaisers, pick your Lilias, pick your Maokais, and then you can use the fact that he doesn't do nearly as well against magic damage. For Rek'Sai, she has unique angles for ganking and fighting and will pressure a lot early, so don't AFK farm, counter gank and match the pressure, but don't again be drawn into it. So if you can counter jungle to deny her fallback camps, that's crucial, but if you can try and keep her down early, she will not scale nearly as well as other champions. She will also be very aggressive early, so be mindful of your tracking and don't start 1v1ing her if she's fed. She'll get the full fury and you will die. She is an assassin when she's fed. Against the fed Rek'Sai, do your best to avoid, try and get whatever objectives you can, and then do your best to make sure you're within touching distance, so you're not 2-3 levels down. And then ultimately, timing a stopwatch or a Zhonya's on her ultimate proc can be a huge game changer if her W is down and she can't knock you up again. Also, likewise, pay attention to her flash as well as Prado's Claw, as that affects your ability to kite her and pull back. For Rengar, it's pretty simple. Don't fight around bushes. Just don't. He's also a one-trick's friend in that he's strong, but the pilot is the one that makes the difference. So you can test the waters early, but don't int him. Stacking a bone tooth early is the biggest crime of all, and layer CC is your friend, as well as early please ward your buffs and notice where you're starting and where he's starting. You don't want to get caught on the late invade. The ultimate goal here is to not let him get freebies. Think like a Rengar to beat a Rengar. Someone overpushing, shadow the overpusher because Rengar will show up. Deep vision is your friend for Rengar after 6, but ultimately you want to pay careful attention to his W animation for the healing and CC cleanse. Try and wait for it to be baited out if you're, say, a Mordekaiser, and then use your ultimate. Paying attention to his animations is what allows you to control him. You know, as much as you can. Also, just pick Warwick or pick Rek'Sai, he hates that. For Sejuani, watch her passive when you're fighting. Don't use your full combo until it's down because she also has slow resistance. Her counter ganks and ganks overall can be very, very strong with Q and ultimate, so be sure to track her pathing, but remember she's not too difficult to handle in a general sense, but can easily get ahead with Season 13 items and team fighting versus tanks equals a team job. The thing is, she just doesn't really interact with your game plan too much. She's trying to do her own thing, so you do yours, just do it better than she does hers. That, and if she doesn't have a lot of melees on her team, her E is going to be less useful in fights, so that's something you can play around. For the Shaker or Shaco clown that I destroyed and pulled apart in my last video, early vision and scanners are required no matter what. If you can destroy his boxes level 1, please do so. If you can get a ward where he starts, please do so, because there's not much you can do for a Shaco ganking bottom lane and killing your ADC. Use the cringe to fight the cringe, and remember that you can use your smite on him before his ultimate, as the particles will reveal which Shaco is real and which is the fraud. Once he finishes his mythic, whatever that might be, of all the mythics in the game, it will have a yellow border around it when you click on him, and if it's not there, then it's the clone. And again, like with other cheese things, when you simply cannot fight him 1v1, you cannot track him very easily, just attempt to make equal and opposite plays versus him. Counter jungle him, stifle his experience, don't give him camps to fall back to. He shows bot, take a herald, he shows top, take a dragon, control the map, control the Shaco. Because he is much weaker in 1v1s when you get fed against a lot of champions, and his team fighting is significantly worse in most people's hands. Next up we have Shyvana, and she can easily become a problem later, but she can be an issue in the early game if she hits her E, which is of course the E percentage max passive. So use the fact that she gets low while farming to invade her and prevent AFK farming. All Shyvanas will look to do early dragons, so ward it and collapse on it as she gets low trying to greed one. It stacks her passive, so don't let her stack it. Strong ganks to get laners ahead will force her to be desperate and give you prior to do said dragons before she is able to sneak them. Remember, do whatever you can to prevent the snowball of the objectives, because that's her win con. Farm, get 6, use ultimate, farm objectives. She will only look to fight around 6, so you gotta do stuff in that downtime. And this is where she will look to lane gank, so if you can lane gank before her and get lanes to the point where she can't do that, that's good. Drain tank will become a problem in team fights, AP will become a nuke bomb you can't really get onto. Just try your best to do all these things to prevent her scaling. Next up we have Skarner, and I'm just gonna say he's getting reworked anyway, and who is this champion? Just remember for the time being that he can farm very quickly with Qmax, and he has percentage HP damage, which can be a huge problem for your health stacking homies. At the same time, he's got a shield, he's got a lot of CC, and he's fast. Terrorizing champion, I'm glad he's in the abyss, and I'm glad he's getting reworked. And speaking of monsters, hello Silas, welcome back to the jungle. Nice to be the best in the game, isn't it? An absolute menace of a fighter and an absolute menace of a ganker. Nothing snowballs harder in the season. Know this and respect this. However, if you're against an AFK farming Silas, then you should be able to invade and kill him early. Remember, he's very slow in the 4 to 5 camp, 6 camp. He should never be doing those things. You can invade and kill him early should they want to do that. So early vision is great. Remember that W has a 5-second cooldown at max rank, which means it's up really frequently. You have to play around when he uses it and use that 3 to 5 seconds very intelligently before he heals up again, and create spacing if you're not going to win that fight. While he attempts to gank over and over again, you can easily eke out a huge farming lead and objective lead, as well as counter gank him. So again, like with all gankers, try and use that against him, but don't be afraid of him before he gets fed. So if he's ganking, you're counter jungling. If he's farming, you're invading, so you do have counter plays. Other than that, if he gets fed on something, yeah, you know, pray to Odin. For Taliyah, the most important thing is avoiding the W. If you can avoid that, you don't get one shot. If you respect the E and don't dash on it, you avoid getting stunned. That's why you want to use the respect flash to prevent those things happening. While her ult does allow fast rotations with her movement speed passive, it's not something you're going to think about until you're ganking and she shows up, so it's just something you're going to keep nested in your mind. And remember, she's susceptible to all-ins. You can jump on her and nullify her range and avoid her W while bursting her out, you can have a good time. But if you don't, she will poke you, she will chase you, she will kill you, she will one-shot you. It's all about the all-in, like it always is against mages. For Talon, you know, we've gone through the meta obviously, but he's a hyperactive perma-ganking jungler. He used to be able to farm, now he can farm decently but nowhere near the same tempo. So he can easily go from one side of the map to the other while full clearing decently, especially with Tiamat and Ravenous Hydra. So do not attempt to match this play speed, you will never ever get there. Farm well, control objectives, counter jungle when you can, and don't fret if he gets a little bit ahead. Just try and be equal in experience and gold, and get ahead with the opportunistic skirmish, and then you can one-shot him and have no issue. Again, watch that bleed passive from his W, that's the thing that's going to slow you and that will get you, don't let him stack it up. And know that eventually you will able to easily peel, CC, and deal with him in team fights like you can with team assassins. Stick together as one and ensure you are fearing him, CCing him, and don't let him move. And obviously with his ultimate going invis and his movement ability with his E, if you can stick to him in whatever way, like with a Warwick, try your best, but obviously chain CCing is your friend. Trundle is basically just a big old stat check. If you can kite him, do it. But only fight him 1v1 if you can win. Only fight him in 2v2 in skirmishes when your team has the advantage, and you know you do, because lethal tempo Trundle is potent. PTA Trundle is potent. Do not engage straight at 1v1 fistings. Be intelligent about it. Once you have the lead, yes, but if he gets the lead, he will chase you down with Tiamat, Divine Sunder, or whatever he's building, become very difficult to get away from due to his pillar slow, as well as Frozen Domain movement speed and attack speed boost. So while that is an issue, he does become a bit of a kiteable monster should you maintain equilibrium with him. Try and pick something that can abuse him early, like your kindreds for example, and the 1v1 tanks, remember you lose your stats, so be mindful of when he is and where he is in those fights. I mean, Twitch is not really jungler anymore, but he can kinda do it in Season 13, so an early ward around his red lets you know where the cheese is coming from. You will go for a cheese gank wherever he does, and of course that's when you collapse on an invade and kill him on the crab or while he's down 20 CS. Just don't be baited into trying to react to the early ganks instead of focusing on your own sequencing and counter jungling, because he will quickly find himself outleveled and unable to do anything. He also cannot easily do AoE camps, so if he's forced into that, that's when you want those cheeky invades, that's when you want to show him who Tom is and who the mouse is. And obviously the easiest solution is just to pick Rek'Sai, Rengar, Warwick, something that can see him, kill him, and go next game. Udyr is one of the most difficult champions to counter because of the nature of the rework, making him basically a tank or one-shot monster, and something that you can't kite, and something that can go CC immune. The best advice we have is to keep track of which ability he uses with his Awaken passive. The E will make him unstoppable, the W will give him a Giga Shield and a Giga Heal, and obviously the Q becomes even more Q max HP damagey. Just do not be baited into using those critical spells when he has Awakened E, because if he's used it or uses it on something else, now you can actually CC him. And again, that percentage HP from the Q-Max and the itemization shifts that he can have will change how you itemize against him. If he's going demonics and tank, obviously magic is better. If he's going for the Q-Max, then armor is better. But ultimately, shields are your friend when he goes either of those builds. And then again, he is becoming a fighter tank engager that just kind of does what he wants. Best thing you can do is group together and chain CC him when he doesn't have Awakened E. Do your best to burst him down or get ahead of him with good, strong early game jungling. Vi can feel like something that's kind of obnoxious to deal with, but she's just really a jungler in the game League of Legends. She will try and solo dragons early, so just ward and be mindful of that. She will to gank and get ahead, but she can farm a little bit. She doesn't really do anything supremely well, she just does everything good. If you will allow me to use slightly broken English. And remember, the point and click on the ultimate, that's the most important thing here. Be there for the sucker on your team who gets outplayed with this button. The best thing you can do here is keep your distance, avoid that max HP damage, know that she has a shield, and if you can avoid Q or interrupt her Q, that's your ticket to victory. Avoid Q, win game. And otherwise just use good jungle fundamentals and beat her down, ironically. Viega's a bit of a tough cookie, although not quite this season, although in the future he most likely will be, so his weaker early game should be abused. Cut off his ganks, invade, 1v1, take him, destroy him, PTA proc, volibear him, counter gank him, take the crabs, bully him. Everything you do against him should make it feel personal. His E will allow him to move around the map quickly, so as long as your tracking is good and you can sort of react to game tempo, you should be able to deal with that. But most importantly, use your flash or abilities to dodge his ult when you are lower HP to avoid setting off the reset mechanic, that pseudo execute that he has. And again, when he comes around the corner with an E, put a control ward down, frustrate him, get in his way. But whatever happens, respect flash that ultimate, realize that he gets those resets and that heal, and that is something we want to prevent. Volibear used to be a destroying monster god of the map, and now he's just a little bit of a cub bear. I'm sure at this point, when someone watches this in the future, he will be strong again. So, if you can kite him, kite him. If you can CC him, CC him. But don't do it if his Q isn't going to reach you because you're going to reset it. Try and wait for the Q to arrive, then CC him, create some more space. You really delay that reset mechanic. But at the same time, if he does get on you, he will out-duel, out-gank, and easily out-objective you. That is his strength. Play to yours and don't get caught up chasing him around the map. That's what he wants. Because obviously if you do that, I'm counter-jungling you 7 CSPM, killing you, diving you, and there's nothing you can do. The most frustrating thing for a Volibear player is obviously counter-jungling. Tier 2 camps, Tier 3 camps, second buffs, taking an objective away while I'm diving top lane level 6. Because his ganks aren't as free as they have been in the past and his damage isn't as potent as it has been in the past, you are able to kind of force him into a gank, take stuff away, makes him weaker. He goes somewhere else, make him weaker again. Now you can beat him 1v1. Now he's just a fluffy bear that's a tank. If he gets ahead, he will become an assassin and you can do nothing. Time the flash, watch the Q, and of course time the ultimate for the dives. And please remember, dodge the E. That thing does a lot of percentage damage and it's magic. He's a hybrid damage dealer, so your itemization needs to reflect that. Warwick, on the other hand, a lot of that stuff can be true. You want to kite him, you want to bait out a Z and don't get caught up in it. You want to try and avoid the ultimate using your movement speed spells, sidestep that ultimate, but he also has predictable clears which should be met with force. Slower clears are a given, which should give you level 4 prior, which you can use to get ahead of him, but obviously he's very, very strong early. Don't get baited into fighting him. Good Warwicks will always turn with the W and the healing passive. You want to be cautious of that. Remember that Q is just a max HP damage spell on loop and makes him unstoppable. So once he's used it, now you can use your dash ability because he can't stick to you. Try and use your flash only afterwards if possible. Remember, a fed Warwick needs to be respected in terms of sustain and damage, so don't get baited into those fights thinking you can actually win. And remember, his E not only is a fear, it's also damage reduction. So when he channels it, kite it out. Don't Don't attack him with all your load. Make sure you don't get caught in that fear, and now you can easily win the fight. It's always a mind game of spells with him. Next up we have Wukong. Remember, his Q gets lower CD from attacks and spells, so use good spacing while dueling to remove that advantage. His mobility also, thanks to his W, is now insane, goes over walls, so respect the flanks and the ganks, and think like your enemy to keep track of the possibilities. And don't waste ults and crucial spells when his clone is up because, you know, you're gonna look silly. Xin Shao, what can I say here? Let's see. The key is to ensure early crab control and prevent him spam ganking your laners. Do that if possible. Just dodge the W and he can't gap close on you from across the world. And remember, he's gonna go for level 2 cheese and early cheese. He needs to snowball. The champion isn't really that good. It's quite binary. Counter jungle him, get ahead. You will always go through games to try and win with heavy ganking pressure. So look to maintain map tempo and objective tempo and counter jungling, and then just avoid that W and make sure you understand what you can do 1v1, and if nothing, just kite, peel, and don't get knocked up. That's that third proc and that Q if you can, because you know that's what knocks you up. Zac is a very difficult one, but deep vision from counter jungling will assist in tracking as best you can, but there's not much you can do really for those ganks. It's almost impossible to track them properly. But he is a bit of a slower farmer. If you know where he's going, definitely set up those counter ganks if you can. You want to abuse him when his passive is down as much as possible, and don't forget you can smite those blobbies when he does, you know, go into the passive mode. The blobbies will also give him healing in those fights, so pay attention to where he's going to walk. Try and track his HP relevant to those, and sometimes his focus and changing focus can leave him open to some destruction. And then don't forget that he can E across Baron and Dragon Pits and smite mid-air, so be mindful of, you know, doing those 50-50s should he be around. But of course, Zac likes to bring people together, so avoid that second Q to avoid being slapped together with someone you don't really want to socialize with. For Zed, he can 258 full clear. What are you doing while he does that? You can't match it, he will invade you, he will kill you, so commit yourself to an action. CC and peel, and that's it. He will 1v9 a game if you let him farm and make picks. Making him feel like he has to make desperation plays outside of his ultimate, thwarting that first level 6 gank, and not letting him get away with AFK farming is the road to success. Of course, Zhonya's and Guardian Angel, that's the one. Just don't unnecessarily feed him, because remember, Counter-Strike stops you from stunning him and CCing him. So relax, you have time to execute your game plan and get ahead of him. And with that, my voice is absolutely torched, and if you want the 5 best ways to use whatever jungle you are playing to actually carry games regardless of who you're facing, click the video in the box on the top right.